About whatever it is you want to speak about, and we'll talk as long or as little about it as you want. My goal as a biographer has always been to just get the story, whatever story you're willing to share. I mean, if you want to talk about taking your nieces and nephews to the zoo, that's what the hell we'll talk about.
Well, I don't do that.
You don't do that? Oh, can we shut that door just a little further? Just to knock down on the sound.
Well, you ask the questions and I'll answer them.
Okay.
What you want to know.
Today is May 19th, 2017, Chosin reunion. I'm talking to Darrel McArdell, who was, as I understand, an MP during the
Military police.
during the Korean engagement. However, your military career started way before that, right?
Oh yeah, started in 1945.
In 45.
Yeah. I was in high school and I getting ready to graduate.
Uh-huh.
And I turned 18 in December of 1944, my senior year in high school.
Okay.
And then we didn't have to go to school the last 2 weeks of the year. So I was working out on a farm where I had been working for the past 3 years, you know, in summertime and holidays and Saturdays and stuff. I worked for this fella, and I was there, and one evening my dad come. He told me I got a draft notice. And I said, okay, but we hadn't graduated yet. And he said, well, he said, I'll go see Frank Cox. Well, Frank Cox was the editor of the local county paper.
Uh-huh.
And he was also a member of the draft board. So Dad went and seen Frank, and he said, well, we'll let him stay until he graduates. So I graduated on Thursday, and Sunday I left for the Army, and on Wednesday, the following Wednesday, I was inducted into the Army.
They didn't waste any time with you at all, did they?
And I went to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, and then from there I, along with a couple thousand other guys, we went down to Fort Hood. At that time it was Camp Hood, Texas.
Camp Hood?
Instead of Fort Hood, it was an infantry training center.
Uh-huh.
And we went down there, and I took 17 weeks of infantry training. And the war, while we were in training, well then they dropped the atomic bomb, and then the war was over. And but we completed our training, and then we went to, we was given a furlough to go home. I went home for, I don't know, I think it was 10 days. And then I went back to Camp Hood and waiting reassignment. And while I was there, I helped, they gave me a helmet that said white helmet. So then I was helping train other troops that were there. And then we finally got our orders, and they put us on a troop train, and we headed to California, and ended up at Fort Ord, California.
Fort Ord?
And there they gave us equipment, clothing for South Pacific. So we knew we probably were going to the Philippines, because that's, you know, when you get warm clothes, why, or summer clothes, why, you're going someplace where it's warm.
Yeah.
And the next day they said, turn them all in. We turned all our clothes back in again. They loaded us on a troop train, And we went from Fort Ord to Camp Shanks, New York, across the country.
Wow.
Went from all the way through, up through Sacramento, Salt Lake, Denver, Omaha, Chicago, to Detroit, under the river into Canada, over to Albany, and down the Hudson River to Camp Shank, New York.
Well, that's one way of seeing the country for the first time, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'd never been away from home over 50 miles before I ever went into service.
So your first big trip's over 1,000 miles.
Yeah, and we got to Camp Shanks. They unloaded us and fed us, put us back on the train again, went down to New York Harbor, loaded on a Navy transfer, went to Le Havre, France.
Large France.
And there we went by 40 and 8 rail cars to Germany. And there was no heated, 40 and 8 was either 40 men or 8 horses. That's why they called them.
Oh,
They were
okay.
for rail cars.
Okay.
And we went to Germany to a replacement depot. And I was assigned to a machines record unit in Leadengries, Germany. It was as far south in Germany as you could go in the mountains, and being in the fall, the sun didn't come up over the mountains till about 10 o'clock in the morning, and it went down about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
It's like being in Anchorage, Alaska, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, and I was in that outfit for a couple of months, and my job was to run a key press operator. What they did at that time was all the information on every soldier was punched on a card.
Uh-huh.
And then when you put the card in some kind of machine, I guess, and you could read it, you know.
Yeah.
And because I took typing in high school, but I wasn't that very good typewriter or typist. Anyway, and then I played basketball on the company team. So between basketball and trying to work my job, they figured I was not good enough, fast enough typer, so they transferred me to the Provost Marshal's office at 3rd Army Headquarters in Bad Tölz, Germany,
Okay.
which was just south of Munich. And I stayed there until, well, my job there was working with prisoner of war. And they assigned me a Jeep, and I told them, I said, I don't know how to drive. I never drove a vehicle before. I drove tractors,
Yeah.
but no car, you know. And they said, well, you'll learn. Said, because I had to take the Jeep and go out to a PW camp and get some prisoners to bring back to, would get them to work, you know, because the unit I was in, you had to, whenever the prisoners were released, they had to have certain documents or cards to show, and that's what our job was, you know.
You were repatriating the Germans?
Well, these were German prisoners of war, Germans. These were Germans when after they interviewed everybody, and they let them return to civilian life. Well, they had to have these cards, you know, showing who they were and where they were,
Okay.
and everything. And then also, as I had this Jeep, and I was a driver, I hauled officers around there, wherever they want to go from the headquarters. And then, what was it, about in March, I drove a lieutenant from the provost marshal. We inspected every prisoner of war camp in Germany that was under Third Army control. So we went from Bateaux to Hamburg, Bamberg. Anyway, one day we ended up down at Berchtesgaden, and we stayed overnight in a hotel there that was for servicemen, and nice hotel, good food. The next day we went up to Hitler's place up on the mountain.
Up to the wolf's lair, huh?
Yeah, but we couldn't go to the Eagle's Nest because the elevator that went up there wasn't working, and it wasn't safe. But if you ever seen a picture of Hitler standing on his patio or veranda,
yeah,
that big window behind him,
yeah.
well, I stood there and looked out to see that same scenery.
Really?
Yes,
Nice.
but the house was had been bombed, you know, and it was all destroyed. But it was a good, interesting trip, you know. And then from there we went back. When we got done with our inspection, we went back, reported back to Third Army headquarters at Bateaux. Well, at that time, Third Army was getting ready to move to Heidelberg.
Okay.
And 7th Army had been in Heidelberg, but they were deactivating the 7th Army, so 3rd Army was taking control of the American sector in Germany,
Okay.
with headquarters in Heidelberg.
Heidelberg.
So I got but when they went to Heidelberg, we had a branch office in Munich. So they sent me to Munich. Well, when I got there, there was nothing. I didn't have my Jeep anymore. I didn't have nothing to do. So I got orders transfer me from the provost on to the 204th MP company,
Okay.
which was in Heidelberg. So I packed up my stuff and got on a train and went from Munich to Heidelberg and reported in. And it was just a company of MPs, and we pulled guard duty at 5th Army headquarters, or 3rd Army.
Third Army headquarters.
Yeah. And I remember one of my posts was at one time, my post was around the house where the general lived.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I never seen him, but.
Yeah. Don't go looking in those windows, right?
Yeah. Anyway, I stayed there, and while I was with that company, in May of 1946, I, along with 3 other guys from our company, we made up the color guard for the 3rd Army for Memorial Day services in Luxembourg.
Okay.
So then we went to Luxembourg for Memorial Day, and this is at the 3rd Army Cemetery where General Patton is buried.
Right.
At that time, he was just buried down among the rest of the troops, you know.
Right.
Of course, now they got a special place for him when you come in the cemetery. And it was a real interesting experience. And then after, I got to meet the members of the Royal Dutch or Luxembourg family that were there for the ceremony. Talked to them, visited with them, you know.
Were you running security for them too?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
That's fantastic.
and then after that, then in mid-June, I come back from movie. Had a day off, so I went to the movie, and I come back, and I was laying on my bunk, and the company clerk come up. He says, "Captain wants to see you." And I thought, "Oh shit, what did I do now?" You know.
Probably wasn't a basketball game, was it?
No. So I went down and reported to the captain, and he said, pack your bags. He named another MP, and he said, report to the train station in Heidelberg. So I did. When I got there, I reported to whoever I was. Well, we were being put on General Lucius K. Truscott's private train.
Really?
General Truscott, during the war, he commanded the 3rd Division in North Africa and Sicily, and then he was in charge of the 5th Army in Italy.
After Clark?
And he had taken over 3rd Army when they relieved General Patton.
That's what I was going to ask. Mark Clark had 5th Army, so I guess Truscott moved over and took 3rd Army.
Yeah.
Okay.
And anyway, let's see where I'm at. General Truscott was in ill health.
Okay.
And so he was going to go back to the States. So being in Italy during the war, he decided to take a tour back through where he served, you know.
Sure.
So this private train, he had his doctor, he had 2 nurses, he had a colonel, his chief of staff, he had a master sergeant, his secretary, he had his private cooks, he had his private drivers. And then there was me and this other MP on the train, plus a lieutenant and 2 enlisted men that traveled with the train. And there was also cooks that traveled, German cooks that traveled with the train.
Wow.
And we had a boxcar with all our supplies in it. We had a Cadillac, a Mercedes-Benz, and Patton's General Patton's Jeep with the air horns on it.
Yeah?
All that was loaded onto that train, and we took off for south.
Another 600 miles.
We stopped, every place we stopped, the general and his doctors, and they would go off and live and stay in some big villa, and the enlisted men would stay on the train.
Okay.
And wherever we stopped, we had Italian guards that guarded the train. All we had to do was, when the general got off the train and when he got on, was be there, you know.
President accounted for it.
Yeah. You'd be put on your MP uniform and stand there and open the car when he comes back to the train. And anyway, we did that, and we got to Rome, and the general went off someplace, and we were on the train in the Rome station where we stayed. We was there for 5 days.
Wow.
And got to see everything in Rome.
Vatican City, the whole
And every night, the drivers that drove the vehicles, they would come back and stay on the train. So we had vehicles, and one night, one of the guys come back, and we took this Mercedes-Benz. It was a convertible.
Yeah.
And the top was down, and we got in it when we went to the Red Cross Club there in Rome. And as we drove up, all the GIs sitting around got up and stood at attention. Well, we couldn't figure out what the hell was going on, you know. Well, the driver of the car, he forgot to cover up the stars on the front of the car, you know. They thought a 3-star general was coming. And here was 5 enlisted men.
Coming to get a beer.
Yeah,
Best taxi ever.
it wasn't a very happy situation there for a while when those GI seen who we got out of that car. But we had a lot of fun down in Rome.
Who did that vehicle belong to before Truscott got
Well, somebody said it belonged to Herman Goering,
to Gary?
but I don't know if that was true or not.
Well, he was a pretty pompous guy. I could imagine him driving in something flashy.
Yeah, but they said that's, And on this train, we had a car on the last of the train, last car on the train. It was a club car. And the top rolled back, opened up. There was a ping pong table on it. You could play ping pong or records, and it was Hitler's private
Club car.
club car off of his train.
Wow.
And we played ping pong going down the tracks in the wind, and all of a sudden the ball would go out a window.
It'd be game over.
Game over. Well, we went through a lot of ping pong balls.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, but we had a lot of fun. And then after we left Rome, we went to Italy, or Naples.
Naples.
And that's where General Truscott got off the train and got on a ship to come back to the States.
Transport.
And then we headed back to Germany. And I don't know, I don't remember if his doctors and nurses, I think they all went back to Germany with us.
So he got connected with whoever was on ship to fill
Yeah.
in. What about the vehicles? Just out of curiosity.
Well, everything went back to Germany. Yeah.
Vehicle, even Goering's vehicle.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, it was part of Third Army
yeah.
transportation, so it went back
Right.
to Germany, to the headquarters of that. And on the way back, we stopped in Florence, Italy,
Mhm.
and we had a layover there. And so me and the Master Sergeant, the secretary of General Truscott, he was Master Sergeant, we unloaded General Patton's Jeep, and we was going to go sightseeing. And we started driving around, you know, and first thing you know, sirens were on blowing, and MPs pulled us over. There was two GIs with OD uniforms in Italy, which was in the summertime,
Yeah.
and they wore khakis, you know.
Yeah.
We had a Jeep that had Third Army markings on it that belonged to Germany. So they hauled us in front of the provost marshal there in Florence, Italy, and this captain, there was a captain there, so this sergeant, he started to explain what the deal was, you know. We was on the general's train, and we just go sightseeing and everything, and then he looked at me and he said, well, who are you? And so I told him who I was, and I said I was MP security on the train.
Yeah.
Oh, you're an MP? And I said, yes, sir, I am. He says, I'm looking for MPs. He says, how would you like to transfer to my unit here? I said, I don't mind. I said, because my unit back in Heidelberg is being deactivated,
Right.
so I'm going to be transferred some. But nothing ever come because he was in Italy and I was in Germany. So they let us go, and we told us to load back up and make sure we got it. So we went back to Germany, and then we got back to Germany. Then the 204th MP company was being deactivated.
Part of the downsizing post World War II.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we reported in, and they were already loading trucks of guys being shipped out, you know.
Yeah.
And hearing me and this other MP, we're standing there with our bags, and I told the officer there in charge, I said, where are we supposed to go? Well, who are you? And so we had to tell where we'd been, you know. So he said, well, where do you want to go? And I said, well, where'd a couple of buddies of mine, I said, where'd they go? Well, they went up to Company C of the 504th MP Battalion in Kassel, Germany. I said, well, send me up there then, because the 504th was in Heidelberg, but Company C was in Kassel. So I went up to Castle, and I stayed there until I rotated back to the States. But it was interesting because during the war, Castle was just about wiped off the map as far as, and we were living in private homes in Castle.
While you were there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know where the German people come, but during the day they could come to their property and be in the basement, but at night they had to go leave. So where they left, where they stayed overnight, I don't know.
Like there might have been some kind of internment camp or whatever set up for them, or
It must,
something of that
yeah.
nature.
And then
I've never heard that before.
we stayed there. This was in June, and along about, I'd say, last August or first part of September, I guess, they had got a new barracks built in a German military concern, you know, and then we moved into that, and that's where I stayed until I'd come back to the States. And then when I got back, I left out, we went to Bremerhaven, Germany, to come back to the States, and we was on a victory ship, and when we come back, it was in October of '46, and we hit a storm in the North Atlantic, and I didn't think we were gonna make it.
It's like being on the Titanic, huh?
And, you know, that old ship would go like this, and you could even feel it when the rudder come out of the water, and because they had everything locked down, you couldn't go on deck or nothing.
Yeah, batting the hatches, right?
Yeah, boy, I tell you, we've scared the hell out. There was about 1,200 of us on that ship coming home.
So you're pushing into about, I don't know, like 5,000 miles of traveling for a guy that
Anyway,
never left the county seat.
we got back to the States, and we come into New York Harbor at night, and we could, big sign there, welcome home, you know,
Yeah.
past the Statue of Liberty.
First time seeing it?
Well, I seen it when we went out,
When you launched, okay, yeah.
but coming back at night, everything was lit up, you know, and made it look so much more appreciated with the big sign and everything, you know.
Right.
And then they shipped us to Fort Dix, New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And there I was processed, and I had leave time coming, so I left and come home, and then I got my official discharge was November 11th, 1946. But I joined the reserves when I was at Fort Dix, and then when I got back to Nebraska, I joined being in the reserve. I was in the reserve battalion in Omaha, and then till I re-enlisted in '49. And then in '49 I went to Fort Riley, Kansas, where I was waited orders, and then I got orders to go to Fort Stoneman, California, or Camp Stoneman, and there I waited for orders, and they put us on a troop ship. From there we went to Seattle, picked up Army dependents, and then we sailed for Yokohama.
Off to Japan.
Yeah.
The 26th was stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas. That was their home turf in the late 50s. Who was it the 26th Infantry in Fort Riley during your turn there?
I wouldn't know.
No memory of it?
I don't know.
That's okay.
All I know is when I was at Fort Riley, they gave us a tank company number that we were assigned to, you know.
Yeah.
And it was just bogus because they knew where you was assigned. 'Cause
Just paperwork.
just for paperwork.
Okay.
And when I had re-enlisted, I wanted to get into the engineers.
Yeah.
And so when I was at Fort Riley, why, everybody was getting their orders, you know, and shipping out, you know, and I'd go down to personnel officers and, what's going on? Where's my orders? I don't know, they say, we're still waiting for them. And finally they called me in and they said, well, we finally got your orders. And I said, well, what was the holdup? Well, what they did, they went back and got my service record from when I was in Germany, you know.
Yeah.
You're going back to the MPs.
Did you go up in rank? Where are you at in rank at this point?
Huh?
Where are you at in your ranking?
Well, I was a PFC at that time.
Did they knock you back a notch after you got out of World War II?
No.
No?
Later on they did.
Okay.
About 48. I ended up a sergeant, but then they eliminated the sergeant rank and I had to go back to corporal.
Get rid of the buck sergeant, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But your pay scale was still the same.
Right.
But they did away with a three-striper.
Yeah.
You went from what they did, they started out, they did away, I forget. Where you used to went in, you was a private. Well, now they changed it to, you went in as a recruit.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's how they eliminated the buck sergeant. And they made a lot of people mad when
I
they
bet
did.
they did.
Because the buck sergeant was the backbone of the Army.
Right.
But anyway, I was a sergeant in the reserves, but then I couldn't carry it over into the
In the regular
Army.
Yeah.
So I was a private really when I went in because I re-enlisted, and by July of '49 I was back sergeant rank again.
You want a Coke or
No.
not? Okay.
So, but then when I was at the Repo Depot there at Camp Zama in Yokohama, or north of Yokohama, well, I waited for orders there, and no orders come through, no orders come through. And finally one day my orders come, and I said, where am I going? They said, going to Tokyo. They said, pack your bags and get on the train and go to Tokyo.
Gonna hang out with MacArthur for a while, huh?
But what I couldn't understand, after I got into the company in 720th in Tokyo, every time we got replacements in, the company sent a truck down to Camp Zama to pick them up, you know. And here when I got my orders, they told me to catch a train and go up, you know, to Tokyo. So, which I did. And then when I got to Tokyo train station, I called the battalion, told them who I was, and they said, well, have a Jeep down to pick you up. They come and pick me up. Here I was, you thought I was a first lieutenant or something, you know, because here I was just a private, you know.
Yeah.
And,
You still wearing the white helmet?
huh?
The white helmet, that was a designation for you. You still wearing the white helmet?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And then I reported in the Company C. I always, because when I took the basic training, I was in Company C. When I was in the 504th, I was in Company C. So I asked for Company C. And so that's how I got there. And then I reported in, and 2 months later I had my sergeant's stripes back, and I was in charge of foot patrols, Jeep patrols, PX. You know, if you was in charge of the PX detail, we had 5 MPs, the main PX in Tokyo.
Okay.
It was a big, huge building, you know, And one of your jobs when you was there, when you was on duty at the PX, was take, I don't know what you would call her, but you'd take this lady to the bank with all the money.
Oh, the bank run.
It'd be the bank run, yeah.
Yeah, the bank run. So I'm kind of curious. I mean, since your key punch days, they hadn't really put a whole lot of stress on you at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, making bank runs is a pretty good deal.
Yeah. So I held that job. I was also a squad leader, and on January 1st, 1950, I was assigned to S3. The reason for that was we had a kid that come into the company, in the C company, and he was on duty one night, Jeep patrol, and instead of being on Jeep patrol, he was at his Japanese girlfriend's house.
Ooh.
And he got to playing with his .45,
Ooh.
and it went off and killed her. And then he went berserk, and then he killed a Japanese policeman, and he went to PMO, shot himself in front of the desk sergeant.
Wow. Just snapped.
So after that, there was one non-com from every company, from all 4 companies, that every time there was MPs that were on duty, there was 2 non-coms that were working through S3 that was patrolling the city. If you was on Jeep patrol, you better be on Jeep patrol and checking in at your police stations on time, unless you call in, or if you was on foot patrol, you better be there. And our job was to make sure they were supposed to be where they were.
They were doing what they were told to do.
Yeah. Before that, it was just too lax. People would go out on Jeep patrol. They'd go to their girlfriend's house, take the radio receiver, put it through the window, and then if you tried to call them, they was probably,
Earshot away.
yeah. But that ended when that kid killed himself.
Wow.
So, and then I held that job until, well, till after the Korean War started. Korean War started on 25th of June, 1950, and then I got relieved. They put in another guy to take my place. I got relieved because they had an inspection tour of the company, and they come to my bunk. Well, my bunk wasn't made up. Nothing was done because I was on duty. I didn't make it back in time to get ready for inspection.
To square away. Yeah.
So the captain, he relieved me of mine. But then the Korean War, we got about a month later. I just pulled duty wherever I had, no special duty or nothing. And then when the Korea, in September, we got orders that transferred C Company to 10th Corps for deployment to Korea.
Yeah.
And
In June 25th, when it hit, did you see yourself being called up? Did you think you were going to go to Korea then, or?
well, at first we didn't know,
Yeah.
but then when you start seeing all these other outfits, like the First Cavalry Division was stationed around Tokyo, you start seeing them outfits move out,
Right.
So we knew it was possible, but we didn't know how it would happen.
Yeah.
Because C Company went to Korea, and the other 3 companies, they stayed in Japan. They never did go.
It's like random draw.
Well, the way the story goes is they sent an order down from headquarters to the battalion to get an MP company ready to go ship out in 24 hours. And the battalion commander was gone, so it was up to the assistant commander, Major Smith. And he figured, well, C Company ain't the best company, but the only one available that they thought would be ready. You know?
That was more capable than the rest?
Yeah, well, we was kind of a, what you'd call a rough outfit, you know.
Little misfit there?
Oh yeah, we had a lot of misfits. So what they did, we only had about probably 110, 115 men in the company at that time. And so then they transferred men from other companies into C Company.
Good.
Transferred them into C Company and brought our strength up to 216 men with 5 officers.
Wow.
And
a
our
bigger group there,
officers, we had one good officer, but the rest of them I didn't.
You're in C Company, they treat you as a company as they ship you out, or were you broke down into platoons like
Oh yeah,
typical infantry?
yeah.
Okay.
I was in, when we transferred to 10th Corps, they gave us a title of 10th Corps Military Police Company, provisional.
Okay.
Provisional means temporary.
Yeah.
And
Attached.
Huh?
Attached.
Yeah. We were attached to 10th Corps.
Right.
And we were that way until I left Korea, and we could never get promoted because we were attached to 10th Corps. We weren't part of 10th Corps.
Right.
You could promote a private to PFC or a PFC to corporal, but you couldn't promote a corporal to sergeant.
To sergeant.
So I never got promoted to sergeant. I was the only squad leader that was a corporal. All the rest were sergeants, staff sergeants, or originally staff sergeants, you know. And but I was in the 1st platoon, the 1st squad.
Okay.
And every time they got a job, I got it.
They called the 1-1, huh?
Yeah. It's like I had this kid in my outfit. Yeah. He retired Warrant Officer 3 out of the CID.
Okay.
And after he retired out of the Army, then he went to work as a U.S. Marshal. And he retired out of Kansas City as a U.S. Marshal.
Wow.
And I still keep in touch with him. And he told me one time, he said, I asked the captain, he said, well, how come you always send Mac out on these jobs when you got guys that are sergeants that outrank you? Why don't you send them? And he said, well, the captain told him, he said, well, I know when I send Mac out, when he comes back, he's going to bring everybody with him.
Nice. Nice.
And that's like when we, and then we landed at Incheon, where I could watch the invasion because we didn't land in Incheon until the Marines had cleaned it out, secured it, you know.
So about the 18th, 19th of the month.
Huh?
About the 18th or the 19th.
Yeah. And then we went ashore, and we were bivouacked in a ball field across the street from a fire station. And we didn't have no vehicles because all our vehicles were out on the LSTs. So we hijacked the fire department truck to put people on duty, haul them around.
Hey,
And,
whatever gets it done, right?
Yeah. And my job was, my squad was assigned, our job was cleaning out the snipers in Incheon.
Okay.
We patrolled all over looking for snipers, and when we found them, and picking up stragglers. And then at night, we guarded the ammo dump. And I can remember they're laying there at night, in USS Battleship Missouri,
Yeah.
be firing. You could watch them bullets, those big shells go through the sky.
Go lob it over the top of you.
They were going lobbing up towards Seoul where the Marines were, you know.
Big Mo.
Big Mo, yeah. And we were there, oh, I don't know, a week or so.
How many snipers?
Huh?
How many snipers? Do you remember?
No.
Did you lose any men?
No.
Captain had you
We only
figured,
lost
did he?
2 men during the whole
Korean involvement?
group.
That's fantastic, sir.
Yeah, well, we only had, I had 6 months of Class A duty, which is combat.
Right.
Then after that, I run the prisoner of war camp in Korea.
In Korea? Were you
10th Corps prisoner of war camp.
down on the island south of Busan?
No, that's right up behind the divisions.
Okay.
But after Seoul was liberated, well, we pulled back then and loaded on and went around to Wonsan to make another invasion. But a South Korean division had captured Wonsan while we were en route. So when we landed, got up there and landed, it was all friendly territory.
Well, why did they have you, if you're tied to 10th Corps, tied in at Wonsan with the Marines when they could have just put you in at Iwan?
To do what?
So why didn't they put you in at Iwan? Why did they put you in at Wonsan with the Marines?
Well, I don't know, that's where...
Don't know.
We spent more time with the Marines than we did with Army.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
We had a good relationship with the Marine Corps.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But then at Wonsan, we were there, I don't know, for a while, and then we went up to Hamhung. And then on the 27th of November, they picked 40 guys out of the company under the executive officer. He was in charge, and we went to the reservoir.
Who was your XO? Do you remember?
Yeah, Lieutenant William E. Van Buskirk.
Van Buskirk. Okay.
He was a one good officer, and I was in contact with him up until the day he died in 2003.
2003.
He died at age 93.
Just to back you up a bit, you're landing at Wonsan. Did you go straight ashore, or were you sitting out there in the harbor for a little bit?
Well, we had to wait because they had to clean out the mines.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
we had to wait because they had to clean the mines out of that harbor, yeah.
On your ship, was it all MPs, or were you traveling actually with the
Well, when
Marine
we
Corps
went to Wonton, we were mostly all MP. Everybody, well, they had other troops on there too.
Okay.
But we went to from Japan to Incheon.
Right.
We had a lot of South Korean troops on our ship.
Yeah. Katusas.
But when we got up to, we had some South Korean MPs that were assigned to us, and they worked with us. But
Did you get them up to speed? Were they pretty good at their job?
well, some of them were. They were, you know. I remember one time, this one South Korean, we picked up I don't know who he was, South Korean, North Korean, what it was, but he was just beating the hell out of him, trying to get him to talk, you know.
Yeah.
He had a golf club and he was beating this guy to hell, you know. I went and took that golf cart away from him. And then he, you know, he was talking, I don't know what the hell he was saying, but I guess he figured I shouldn't have took that club away or to beat this guy up. But anyway, once I took the club away from the Korean MP, and this guy he was beating on, he looked at me and nodded, you know. Hell, he started telling the story. But before, when the guy was beating him up, he wouldn't say anything.
Like he couldn't get a word in, didn't want to, huh?
Yeah. But then
Little good cop, bad cop.
we went up to the reservoir on the 27th, the morning of we left about 4 o'clock in the morning to go up to the reservoir.
All the way to Hagaru.
Well, I didn't go all that far. So if you look at this map,
There's a map behind you on the wall there, sir. It's not a good one, but
yeah.
it
But-
it does all right.
When we left Ham Hung, there was 40 of them. And along the way, like at Sungdong, Shenhongni, Kodo, Hagaru, there was 4 or 5 MPs stationed at all those places
Along the road.
along the road for traffic control.
Checkpoints and traffic control.
Yeah,
Okay.
because see, that was a one-way road, and there was no 2 lanes, so the traffic had to be controlled one way or the other. You know, you know how they do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like they do today.
But yeah, but the Lieutenant Van Buskirk, he took guys. There was 5 guys at Kodo and 6 at Hagaree. Bob Harley, that's here, he was at Hagaroo,
Okay.
and we ended up, our base camp was at the bottom of the Fujianlin Pass,
Okay.
because and I patrolled that every day while we were up there.
I don't remember. Is the gatehouse at the bottom of Fuchilin Pass or at the top?
Gatehouse was up top,
Up the top. Okay.
and on November 30th, I and my driver and Lieutenant Van Buskirk, we escorted a 20-truck convoy of hauling troops, and I don't know who they belonged to, but we could only go as far as the top of the pass,
Okay.
because from there on to Coterie, that was all under control of Chinese after the Chinese come in
Come the 30th.
on the 30th.
Okay.
The Chinese tacked on the 27th, and then this was on the 30th. And we couldn't take them any further, so when they found a open space they could turn around, they turned the trucks around and unloaded the troops. And those troops joined Colonel Drysdale and the 51st British Commandos.
Right.
And they were supposed to fight their way into Coterie.
Wow.
And while we were turning those trucks around, the Chinese hit that bridge across the water ducts that were coming down the mountain.
The pin stocks.
Penstocks or whatever you call
Yeah.
it. Anyway, they hit it exactly where a truck couldn't get by.
One wheel was going in the hole one way or other.
Yeah.
Okay. I got
So
you.
luckily we found some timbers to lay across that hole, and regardless of the sniper fire or whatever, cold weather, I directed those 20 trucks across that hole, because you had the hole, and the trucks had like these was a planks or the timber, you had to ease up on them so you wouldn't push them
Scoot them into the hole.
to the hole, and then when you got off them, you had to just slowly drop off them so you wouldn't cook them back the other way.
Right.
And I and they were all black soldiers, truck drivers.
Really?
Yeah, they were segregated, but they were all black drivers, and they were scared as hell.
Oh, I bet.
But we got all those trucks out of there, and the colonel that was in charge of the trucks, I can't remember his name, he was wondering why his trucks weren't coming, why they were being delayed. Well, when he come up there, we showed him what the hell was going on, you know.
Yeah.
And then he understood. Anyway, I got all them trucks out of there, and I was recommended for an award, and to this day I'm still waiting for that award.
Still waiting for the paperwork, huh?
Yeah. So.
I'd say a cold day in hell, but a cold day in Korea at this point, right?
But then on the 1st of December, I took an engineer lieutenant. There was my driver, me, and the lieutenant in the first Jeep. And in the second Jeep, there was a driver and Sergeant Klein and Sergeant Paradise. They were in the second Jeep. And we were in the lead Jeep. We got up the top of the pass, and it had snowed during the night, and there was Jeep tracks ahead of us. And just as the top of the pass, there was a Marine truck that had been disabled, knocked out, sitting on the road. That Jeep track goes right around that truck and right on. And we could never figure out who it was and what made those tracks. Anyway, the lieutenant, we stopped at the top. We had a big mountain here, and then it was, well, you drove about, I don't know, 10 yards, 15 yards, and you was out in the open.
Yeah.
So the lieutenant, he was standing there in his field glasses looking. We could hear machine gun fire going off in the distance, you know, and stuff. And he says, oh, it looks like it's okay, we'll continue on. We got out in that open and they cut loose on us.
Wow.
And being in the front Jeep, why, the lieutenant, he went out this way into the ditch. My driver dropped down beside the Jeep, and I was sitting on the Jeep seat, the back of the seat,
Yeah.
because we had a machine gun on, a 30 caliber machine. And I just went this way, you know, just fell. And the guys in the other Jeep, they said, when I fell off, they thought I was dead because of the way I fell. I just, because
the motion?
I don't even hardly remember the reaction, you know. All I do is I remember I was on the ground, you know. Anyway, the lieutenant, he made it into the protection of the mountain, and my driver was protected by the Jeep, and I was behind the Jeep, and the other guys, they were back there, and they tried to turn their Jeep around and they ended up in a ditch.
Oh no.
So they couldn't get it out. So my driver, in order to get out of the line of fire, he put the Jeep in four-wheel drive, well, it wasn't four-wheel, but he put it in reverse, and on his hands and knees, he backed that Jeep back into the protection of the mountain. Well, then they couldn't hit us.
Okay.
So
Back
anyway,
the turn. Okay.
we got out of there. We're getting ready to leave, and this other Jeep was in the ditch. So I wanted to blow it up, you know. And this sergeant that was, well, I was in charge, but he outranked me. He said, oh no, you don't. He says, we're gonna come back and get that. I said, you ain't gonna come back and get that Jeep. Anyway, it had a 30 caliber machine gun on it.
Yeah.
And I said, well, because the Chinese had it covered, that Jeep, because every time you tried something, they'd fire.
Yeah.
Anyway, it had a 30 caliber machine gun on it. And I said, well, I'm not leaving that 30.
Right.
I went and got it, but I went and got it, they never hit